Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Puck on the Parkway. I know very few people want to tune in and talk and listen to more about the New Jersey Devils right now, but that's what we're here to do for you. 16 games to go in the season, or is it 18 games to go in the season? Excuse me.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who cares? We hardly do at this point. I'm James Burley. He's Daniel Rebane. Thanks for joining, folks. The Devils just saw a four-game win streak get snapped on Sunday against the Detroit Red Wings, a 3-0 loss at the Prudential Center in the middle of their homestand. They've got three more games, excuse me, to fill out at the Rock before they go on a short little road trip that includes some local stops against the Rangers at the Garden, over to the Capitals, and a few more. But we've really gotten to a point where it's not looking like there's going to be much to look forward to from these games. Some pride that they're playing for. They're not mathematically out of it yet, Dan, uh, but things don't look too hot. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, man, it's been brutal to watch. Before we talked a lot about it before the Olympic break, but those first two games coming out of the Olympic break on that high, I was in the building for that Buffalo Sabres game, and they played well. It's just couldn't score, and that's been the whole story this year. It's just not being able to score when you create the chances needed, especially when you get good goaltending this year, right? We'll talk about it more, but Jacob Markstrom's kind of turned it around. He's been excellent for a majority of these games coming out of the Olympic break. So yeah, it's been depressing. Army hockey is done for me, so that's kind of depressing as well. I love covering that team this season, so now back to Devils hockey for full time with what 18 games left or whatever it is. So it's gonna be a slow grind to the end, and we'll see what decisions are made.
Yeah, as I mentioned, things don't look too great on the playoff front. Money Puck has their current playoff odds at 1.1%, which is the second lowest of any team in the Eastern Conference, ahead of only the New York Rangers. So if there's one silver lining this season, it's that there's a team worse than us in the region, and it's the Rangers. Their next matchup is against the Calgary Flames, who are the next lowest team on the playoff odds after the Devils at 0.3%. If the Devils lose in regulation, their odds go to 0.34% of making the playoffs. If they lose in overtime, it still doesn't look much better, 0.64%. If they win, though, they move all the way up to 1.43. If they win the game in OT, actually, their odds jump up even higher. So maybe they got to get to OT and win the game. I don't know how that works, how that makes any sense, but I guess that's just the way Money Puck has it done. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a math whiz and I understand all the analytics. But if we look at the last few games, like I mentioned, they were on a four-game heater. Saw that go to the wayside against the Red Wings, and like you said, Dan, it's been the blueprint all year. Play
Mhm.
good hockey, just can't find a way to score goals. They did have a good run of scoring goals, though. They beat the
Yeah.
Panthers 5-1, beat the Leafs 4-3, beat the Rangers 6-3, and then they followed it up with a big old goose egg against the Red Wings. The first half decent team in that run, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
They beat the Blues 3-1 on the road to start this little momentum kick that they had. And of course they had momentum coming out of the Olympic break with Jack Hughes scoring the gold medal goal, Markstrom having a good tournament. And then you got the Swiss players having good tournaments as well. Timo Meyer was on the score sheet regularly in Milan and
Mhm.
has come back. And while he didn't look like scoring against the Red Wings, I thought he did a lot of good things with the puck and he was a lively player. But still, it's just not been good enough to get things over the finish line. And even though they're playing good hockey now, Dan, they've got the good goaltending. It's too little, too late.
Mhm.
Not a whole lot to look forward to in these last few games.
Yeah, I think at this point in the season, I think, it's about just getting as much good momentum heading into the offseason as you can. Sure, people are probably going to want the team to lose so they get a higher pick, but the Devils are past that. They're past tanking for better draft picks, right? Like who, if you're going to get, the seventh or eighth pick, that player is not going to play on the team for the next, 3, 4 years. So, I think winning as many games as possible is better for this team mentally. Pick up the morale a bit. Heading into the offseason that, quite frankly, is going to be the biggest offseason of Tom Fitzgerald's career if he's around still, right? So, I think that's just what it is. Going down these last final games, playing as best they can, scoring. Just Jack Hughes has looked lively and he got that hat trick against the Rangers, but as well. Scored in that Rangers game, but another guy that's been snake bitten all year. So I'm just looking for the superstar players to kind of pick up their game that next extra level and start putting the puck in the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Hughes went, what, 24 games with just one goal before that Rangers game and scored three,
Yeah.
and honestly has been great in that time. He was very clearly playing
Yeah, no.
with just one hand for a long stretch of that. He seems to be fully healed now. But he's got 45 points in 43 games. Hard to pin anything on him. Um,
No, yeah.
Jesper Bratt, for as snake bitten as he's been in front of goal, has still been dishing out assists with the to
hmm
the level that you think he'd belong at. 48 points leads the Devils team. Heischier hit a bit of a wall with his goal scoring. He looks like he might be the only 20 goal scorer the Devils have this year. He's at 21 goals. The next closest is Timo Meyer at 17. And then there's been a couple of happy surprises, right? I mean, Dougie Hamilton has sort of switched on at the second half of the season, has been a lot better, but
Finally.
has he been Dougie Hamilton yet? I still would argue no. But the two surprises in the team for me, and I think they're pretty clear ones, is Simone Nemitz, and it's hard to call him a surprise when we know what quality he possesses, and we've seen it in flashes before. He's been poised to have a season this good for some time. But Cody Glass, I mean, we're going to talk about the inactivity from the trade deadline, Dan. Cody Glass, for
Mm.
me, considering some of the deals that went on around the league, he's a +2. He's got 14 goals. He's aiming for a career high. I think he's been unsung, one of the Devils, if not the very best player in terms of what you expect and what you get. I'd like to see him be a Devil for a long time, but for me, he was towards the top of the list of someone that you could maybe get some value for in a potential trade.
Mm.
Do you see that as the same way? And would it have been worth exploring options for a player like Cody Glass, who has been a revelation this year?
Well, yeah, first I'll touch on that, but there's also been a third player that's kind of surprised people this year, and that's Arseny Gritsyuk. We'll talk
Of
about him
course.
as well. But yeah, I think Cody Glass, right? Kind of we both like preseason we're talking about if the Devils wanted to really go somewhere, Cody Glass would be your fourth line center. But he's kind of impressed me in a way where he's finally finding that offensive ability, right? Where he's playing much better consistently in the offensive zone and he's producing, right? And if he's doing that, he's an excellent 3C or a really good 3C, right? Um, and yeah, you touched on it. Could he have been that guy that you go into this market and be like, you know, what's out there? Like, we're seeing guys get first and third round picks for, guys playing less than Cody Glass this season. And he's also got another year at 2.5 million. So like that contract was definitely affordable. That was probably the one guy I would have been like, you know what, go if you really found an offer out there that you really liked, I would have been fine with that flip because then you could have used those assets that you brought in because it was going to be a first and probably, a B-level prospect or another pick. You could have used those picks to go find that top six level player winger that you're looking for this offseason because we know that's going to come, right? And I think the
He
Devils
has
as
to.
like there's when you look at Devils assets right now, there isn't that many high level assets in the farm system right now because they're all in the NHL. You look at a couple guys like maybe a Seamus Casey, but he's been injured. His value's kind of fluctuating in and out. You got Anton Salayev, who is coming over this next season, but he's taken a step back offensively this year in the KHL. So, you know, the assets for prospect wise aren't there for the Devils. But if you were able to get an extra first round pick either in this year's draft or next year's draft, you could have used that to go find maybe a Jason Robertson or, another player of that level who might be needing a new team. So I'm okay with Cody Glass coming back because that's definitely a position that they've been missing these past couple of years is that third line center. So I'm fine with him staying, but I would have been also fine with them flipping him if they were able to find another good offer out there, especially in this buyer's market that people were talking about. It was clearly a seller's market from the jump. So, um, yeah, so I'm glad he's still here, but if they were able to get a first plus for Cody Glass, I would have been happy as well. So,
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm happy that he's going to be a Devil moving forward because I've really enjoyed what he's been able to provide the team in ways that, he's one of only a handful of players that you could say that about this year.
yeah,
Uh, just looking at trades across the league, the main one that came to my mind is Nick Waugh went to the Avalanche in exchange for a conditional 2027 first round pick and a
yeah,
conditional 2026 fifth round pick. I mean, if that's what you could have gotten for Nick Waugh, imagine what Cody Glass would have been able to provide for a team that's trying to be a Stanley Cup contender, like the Colorado Avalanche, and considering the season Glass has had, it would have been admittedly a better deal than what Nick Watt was able to fetch for the Maple Leafs. So
yeah.
that's the first one that came to my mind. Obviously, the Dougie Hamilton noise has been reverberating for
We
a
want to
while,
touch
and
on that. We should touch on that quote from Tom Fitzgerald, by the way.
yeah, let me pull that up. But just across the board, I find it shocking that this team remains as intact as it does after the break. And look, we don't know how true this was, but there were reports that Tom Fitzgerald was angling to make a locker room shakeup type of move after
Yeah.
the Olympic break. And unless Nick Bukestad's arrival is what he meant by that, that didn't happen. And Bukestad, fills in the 4C role, and is necessary. They needed someone to step in and add there when it became clear that Glendening was not going to be that player, even though we had been impressed with him
Early
in the
on.
preseason and early
Yeah.
on in the season.
That faded real quick.
Yeah, and look, do I think Bukestad is the long term answer there? I'm not convinced about that, but um, that cannot be the only move if they were serious about the season. And I think maybe it's probably the right call in the end from Fitzgerald, um, not to make such a big shakeup
Yeah.
when it's pretty clear that the season's going to end in one way. Really, I was going to say one of two ways, but it's really just one way now. They're going to miss the playoffs and miss the playoffs by some margin here. 9 points behind the Islanders for the final playoff space in the Metropolitan Division. I'm still trying to pull up that quote so I get it correct. Um, Quote, I did not have Dougie Hamilton's name out there from Tom Fitzgerald because he had been playing so well for us. I mean, I appreciate that he acknowledged that he started to turn a corner and playing well. I mean, that much is true, but how much longer can they keep this $9 million defenseman on their books when they've got guys like Nemitz waiting to take that power play time in the wings
Yeah.
and honestly, Nemitz is a better all-around defenseman than Dougie Hamilton has been for the past couple seasons, in my opinion. I love Dougie Hamilton, and we'll never forget that he was the first domino to fall in the line of big players joining the New Jersey Devils. But um, it just doesn't seem like fruitful business to keep him around any longer. And maybe on the draft day or maybe this summer,
Yeah.
we really start to see the wheels start to turn there again, Dan.
Yeah, I think that was a ridiculous statement to say that Dougie Hamilton's name wasn't out there because it was clearly out there. Like you had a back and forth with his agent on Twitter, basically.
Yeah,
Like his name is clearly out there.
that
His
was like a month ago.
Yeah, right? That was like in late January, right? Early February, something like that. When his turnaround finally kind of, culminated where he was healthy scratch for one game back in the lineup and he's been on the score sheet like almost every game, which is, you know, that's a great sign that should have probably happened earlier to give him a health scratch. Um, because I feel like, like Tom Fitzgerald said, you got to agree with Tom Fitzgerald on that. Like he was playing terrible, terrible hockey up until that point. So, um, yeah, I think it was ridiculous to say his name wasn't out there because clearly was. Um, he's been trying to trade him for almost a year now. He's rejected two trades apparently up until this point this season, one in the off season, and then I think there was another point, in this season where he vetoed another trade somewhere. So clearly you've been trying to trade him. I think he could have, had a different statement and it would have been acceptable saying, that we value Dougie at a certain point. We're just not going to give him away for free. That would have been much acceptable to say, right? And, I think they are going to find a trade partner this offseason. Maybe they circle back with San Jose because I feel like that fit with San Jose is just, it really is there, right? They have no right-handed defenseman like signed long term heading into next season. And I think he can go in there and bring his offensive prowess on the power play as well to a young team that kind of needs that, veteran kind of body on the back end that still has game left in them. So yeah, we'll have to see once the draft comes around. But yeah, I think you touched on Nemec being, much better player. When Nemec gets like 20 plus minutes, we've seen it. Like he is a really good defenseman, right?
He's a
Now is
gamer.
now is he worth the 9 million he's probably gonna ask for? No, not right now. Maybe he is in the next few years if he is getting that first line minutes on the back end, but yeah, we'll have to see. I think they're gonna first have to get rid of Dougie, and maybe Nemec is also traded this offseason because maybe he is that piece you need to go get that top line winger you're looking for.
And then does that answer our next question that I was going to ask? Does that open the door for a long-time NHL commitment from a player like Colton White, who has been excellent when he's shown up this season in the NHL level? Or perhaps should they give a run to a guy like Ethan Edwards for the end of the year? Because there's been another right-hand defenseman that, for me, has felt out of place since coming back from injury, and that's been Jonathan Kovacevic.
Hmm.
Seeing him in person at the game against the Red Wings, it just feels like he's not fully back healthy. I mean, yeah,
Not at all.
I'm not in the room where he's getting his medical attention after practice and game in and game out, but he gets beaten so easily these days. And for a guy who was the premier shut down defenseman when Brett Pesce was unavailable for this team, it just feels like such a fall from grace because he was such a welcome surprise last year.
Hmm.
Kovacevic just snuck in and really, um, he was the reason that for a while it looked like Nemec was not going to spend time at the NHL level, and then he came in and made that position his own. And 16 games this year just hasn't looked like himself. I think he was at fault for a number of high danger chances against the Red Wings, and on that third goal, he just can't bring his stick down and block the passing lane in front of the net. I mean, he was just he wasn't good. And the fact that I there wasn't more going around for the player that he can be in the trade talks, that kind of surprised me a little bit. And I don't know if Pesci's day to day, he'll come back eventually, but um, for me, Kovacevic has no place or shouldn't have a place on this blue line right now. At least not till he's more fully healthy. Um, what say you? Do you think they bring in? I mean, I don't think they will now, but do you think that they should have, introduced someone maybe from Utica to come and step in here when Pesci was unavailable?
Yeah, I think, we've seen Kovacevic since he's come back. I think he's a guy that they probably should shut down for the rest of the year because he's clearly not playing to his level. He's, getting beat in front of the net. His tie-ups, his wall battles, he's losing them. It's just like he's just not an NHL defenseman right now. Maybe you just help scratch him the rest of the year. Maybe he gets, you know, a game or two here and there, but I mean, it's very clear that he's not 100% and he can't play in the NHL right now. Like he is a liability out there. He's taking stupid penalties, that's costing them goals as well. So, yeah, you brought up Ethan Edwards. He's a guy I definitely would take a look at. He's got 10 goals, 10 assists down in Utica this year. They haven't played the best hockey down there, but he's definitely a bright spot for the Comets there. They've gone on a little winning run these past 10 games. So, I think with the season kind of out of hand, it's time to start looking at players that might fit your team in the future. And Ethan Edwards is definitely a player that I definitely would look at. Seamus Casey would be another one, but he's also, been dealing with injury this whole season, which is kind of unfortunate because when he's been playing down in Utica, he's had, relatively a good season. So yeah, Ethan Edwards, Michigan boy, a Michigan man, Alberta born. That would be definitely a guy I would love to see up here because, he might not be the biggest guy, but he brings that physicality. He's looking to initiate contact at just like 5'11", maybe 6 foot, right? On a good day, he's 6 foot, but he's got the skating ability. Last season at Michigan, he was playing over 25 minutes a game. Like he has that ability to be, a minutes cruncher, to play on the penalty kill, play on the power play if need be, right? He's got all those abilities. So it'd be interesting if they gave him a look. I don't think they will, but he's definitely somebody I would definitely give a look at. Colin White as well. He I think he's definitely the guy I would bring back next year as your extra D man. Like he's shown
He's
this
earned
year
that.
that yeah, he's really shown that he's definitely taken that step since he left the organization the first time and came back this year. He's actually looked really good. So he's definitely someone I definitely, if you're not gonna bring up anybody from Utica, he's definitely someone I would just plug in for Kovacevic right now.
And that brings me to another topic when we're talking about these D men. And I know we didn't mention that we were going to say this before the show, but we talked about how good Nemitz looks when he gets a bulk of minutes in a game. I just watched him not get a single second on the power play. Um, and look, Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes are understandably ahead of him in that regard. Um, but watching the Olympics, Nemitz was, after Slavkovsky, was Slovakia's most important player.
Yeah.
And they got all the way to the medal round. Um, in probably the toughest group in the preliminaries. And he was a huge, huge reason for that. I think the more and more you trust this kid with responsibility, the more positively he's going to respond. So he kind of felt like a non-factor in that game against Detroit because he wasn't getting any particularly exciting minutes. Dougie got time both on the power play and penalty kill, and Nemitz just, I mean, I don't have the figures in front of me how many, how much time on ice that he got, but um,
Against Detroit.
against Detroit, but like he really looks his best. He played 20 minutes, so he got a healthy amount there, and did take a
I mean,
penalty, but registered three shots.
Dougie played 24-21. Like, no
Yeah,
offense. We're at a point in the
we're
season
past
where
that. Yeah,
Dougie can't like should not be playing like the most minutes on the back end, right?
and look again, Dougie Hamilton should be the first defenseman on the power play unit. I'm not saying that, and Luke Hughes probably should be number two. But at what point do you just say, look, we need Nemitz to grow into the type of player that we want him to be in the future. Let's trust him with this. And I think we're past that point, honestly. Just look at the way the season's gone. Um, and so if it's going to come down to paying him a lot of money next year, I say pay him because look, it would be like a Luke Hughes, it'd be a bit of a speculative figure, but I think he's shown more than even Luke has that he can be. I don't think that's a hot take at all. That he can be your go-to top pairing defenseman for a long, long time. We saw as much in the Olympics. We've seen as much this season with New Jersey. I really like him moving forward. The only thing I would understand is if he goes the other way in a trade for a figure like a Quinn Hughes. But unfortunately, we know how that went down. And maybe there's another opportunity down the line for that, but I'm not going to hold my hopes up for that. Personally, I won't. And I don't think you should either. What we should chat about now before we get into
Oh,
some prospects and yeah, go
I
ahead,
just want
go.
to say one thing. I think, I don't think the Devils should go long term with him. I think he's a perfect bridge guy, right? Sign him a 2 year deal, get him at like six, something in that figure, in that ballpark, right? And let him go prove it, right? And give him that opportunity, right? I mean, if you're projecting next year, right? A Dougie Hamilton trade is going to come, right? It has to. Like you need to free up that 9 million, right?
Mhm.
So you project him as, in that top four on the right side, playing him with an Anton Salayev who's kind of, he's got the ability to move the puck, but he's more of a defensive guy. If you give, Nemec the free reign to kind of, play his game next to a guy like that, I think that would really, really fit well for this team. Now, will Nemec want a bridge contract? Will his new agent want a bridge contract? I don't know. I think that's what it's going to come down to is what kind of a contract Nemec wants next year. And if he's looking for that 8 year, $9 million range, I just don't see New Jersey giving it to him, right? I don't know. I think they would probably best be served to look for that first line winger in a trade for a team that wants like, a future right-handed D-man. So it's gonna be a real interesting summer, right? Does he have arbitration? I don't think he has
I
arbitration.
don't think he's eligible, but
So yeah.
yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting. I personally would try to get him on a bridge, 2 year deal, in that in between 6 and 7 mil. And let him go prove that he's worth that kind of long term, big money deal in the next couple of years, right? So
I think that would be the ideal scenario. If they can get him around that figure, whether it's 2, 3 years, I think the best option. And that does eventually, leave you flexible if Quinn Hughes somehow becomes a tradable player in the future that makes
or he
him a
signs in
more
free agency.
exactly that makes you have a little more roster flexibility there. Um, I just looking around the roster right now, I just have the points totals in front of me. Just so many players who have been disappointing through
Hmm.
this season. And I know a lot of people like to pile on to Luke Hughes lately. I'll go to bat for him. He's been excellent in the last five
Oh,
to
since
ten
he's come
games.
back? Oh, since he's
Yeah,
come back, he's been the best defenseman. Like,
he easily actually him and Nemitz have been far ahead of everybody else. Really down year for Siegenthaler too, man.
yeah.
Really down year, and that's when you have Pesci's not been healthy, Kovacevic has not been healthy, and Siegenthaler has had to bear more of the responsibility of the shutdown operation, and he's had a down year doing that. I mean, it's not a good recipe for success, but the real issue, we've all said it, has come from the lack of scoring goals. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Amongst the
Yep.
lowest in goals scored, easily the lowest in goals expected goals below expected. I should say they hit 3 posts against the Red Wings.
I mean,
They
it's
create
it's
good chances. They just don't know how to score.
it's ridiculous the amount of iron that this team has hit all season. The amount of breakaways they don't score on. Like in past years, right? This team's one of the best breakaway scoring teams I feel like in the league. Like every time you'd get a breakaway from a Nico Hischier or a Jesper Bratt. Like Jesper Bratt, you feel like, oh, scores every time on a breakaway. I don't think he scored once this year on a breakaway. So you're gonna hope for some positive regression in that aspect. And again, the amount of posts and crossbars this team has hit is actually ridiculous. I don't know if they track that stat, but they have to be top five in that category because oh my God, the amount of iron, the pings I've heard all season long. I mean that's something I hear when I go to sleep. I hear iron. So yeah, definitely need some positive regression in that aspect.
They don't have that statistic.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
just looking
God, because
for it.
they probably do lead the league in that.
They have it as far back as 2022-23. Um, Wow, and the numbers are really high. I don't think there's no way this can be accurate, but so I'm not going to even bother to share that. Um, yeah, but the last thing I want to chat about before we cut to speak about some prospects, Dan, that you've prepared. We mentioned it, but the goaltending, they've gotten it now.
Yeah,
That had been such an issue for a couple of years with this team, to be honest, but especially this season, it was Markstrom's struggles. Um, Jake Allen had come in and been one of the better backups in the league, and at a time they were really just splitting game after game. They're going one or the other, roll the hot hand, and Markstrom has finally found his groove post Olympics. He's been great. And a tough goal against the Rangers in that first one that he conceded, but other than that he's played a run of games in a row. He's played the last five or actually last six in a row, and he's looked good in each of them. Yeah, he gave up 3 against Detroit, but one was deflected off of Siegenthaler, the other one was a tip, and the third one was a cross ice pass he had no chance on. So look, he's been excellent, and the team in front of him hasn't been good enough. I mean, at least encouraging, Dan, that Markstrom's been able to kick into second gear here, even if the team, yeah, they got 5 wins or 4 wins in their last five, but um, again, too little, too late, and they're not capitalizing enough on the good goaltending they got. They're getting shut out 3-0.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we've kind of figured out with Jacob Markstrom is play him as much as possible. Like it seems like when he's just playing hockey like consistently, like he just finds that kind of zone that you've been looking for. Because his last 9 games that he's played, he's got a 920 save percentage. Like I mean, that's all you can ask for, like, right? If you're getting a 920, anything above 910, especially with this team, right? When you think about it in a normal year, if you're getting 910, between 910 and 920 save percentage from your goalie, this team's one of the best teams in the Metro. So, if this is how he's going to play next year, I mean, that's very encouraging. But again, it's just a short span of games. But if you basically just keep playing him until it kind of, isn't working. Because I feel like he's been one of the best Devils players, especially when they were winning games. Like he was making save after save after save. These cross crease saves that he's making. Even against the Detroit in the Detroit game, player was coming down free and he's making Martin Brodeur glove save. Like so, he's definitely looked like he's found a little bit of that mojo that when he first came to the Devils he had. So yeah, I think at this point you just keep on playing him.
I mean, it would be tough to argue anything else. He's been good enough. Yes, he is 36, but remember, he signed an extension this season. He's going to be around 2 more years.
Yep.
Might as well continue to get what you can out of him because he's been performing really well. And look, yes, there is an argument to be made about can they sink further down into the standings and potentially fight for a lottery pick in the draft. I've never been a fan of that. Yes, I appreciated when they got the first overall pick in 2017 and then 2019 to get Nico Hischier and then Jack Hughes. And then later in 2022 when they got Nemitz with the second overall pick. But I'd rather watch them win games and build some momentum and recapture some of that magic that they've had in previous seasons and become a playoff team again through that. I don't think another young prospect is going to come in and shake up this organization in a way that, winning games and potentially making some acquisitions and trades over the offseason could. And I know you share the same sentiment, Dan, but can you give us, a little more reason as to why it would be silly for them to go on a tanking mode here?
Yeah, because like, let's say they do end up with the seventh or eighth overall pick, right? Like, there's no players in this draft that are gonna well, other than if you get maybe Gavin McKinnon, but even with him, he might need another year of kind of seasoning to, before he comes to the NHL. But like there really isn't many names that are you're taking right away, and you're like those guys are going to be integral parts to our season next year, right? Especially for the Devils, right? If you get into that late 8, 9, 10, and then the teens picks where the Devils are probably going to be at, right? Um, yeah, there's those guys are going to take 3 or 4 years to make the NHL. So at that point, like we're 3 years from now, like well, that's a light years away, especially in the NHL terms. So you know, this is a pick that the Devils might not even use. Like they might just use it in a trade to go get an elite player in an offseason trade with that if that's Tom Fitzgerald, if that's another GM. But this team is built to win now. They need players now. So them losing games to end the year is very I don't know. It doesn't fit what the Devils want from the team right now. Now, if this was, 2019, 2020, 2021, I'd be like, I'd be on that boat because, the Devils needed at that stage, they needed better prospects, better picks, right? And even in 2019 when they won the first overall pick, I think the last 2 games they won those games, right? I think It's something like that. I remember them winning games and me being like, no, no, we're messing up our pick. And
Hmm.
obviously, you go on to win the draft lottery, right? You know, the Islanders last year, I think they were slotted in the 10th slot or maybe even 11, and they won the lottery to go up. Like, so it's you shouldn't be wanting to lose games at the end of the season. You kind of want to win as many games as possible and kind of show yourself, show the team that, you know, the core of this team is still right. We just need better pieces around it, right? So I'm just hoping they go on a run. You know, even if they miss the playoffs like barely, you know, that I feel like that gives the guys, you know, more confidence heading into the offseason, knowing that this is the team to kind of go on a playoff run in the future, right?
Before we talk about some younger players that could come into the team, I just want to focus attention to the Pacific Division real quick, because not a single team in the Pacific Division would have a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Not a
No,
single
the
team.
West has been terrible outside the Central.
Outside the top three teams in the Central and then kind of the Mammoth, the West has been atrocious. The Ducks have 73 points. That would not be good enough to get a playoff spot in the East. It would actually be two to three teams out.
Yeah.
Um, Additionally, the Oilers, who are the final playoff team in the Pacific Division, have 70 points, 31 wins, 25 regulation losses, and 8 overtime shootout losses. The Devils have more wins than the Edmonton Oilers
Yeah.
and are potentially going to finish fifth in line for the draft lottery. The Devils have fewer losses, not if you combine losses in regulation and overtime. Fewer losses than that Oilers team. And the Oilers, we've seen it before. They just need to get into the playoffs and go on a run.
Yeah.
The NHL, man, it is an exciting, it is a fun league. The Ducks are -10 and they're first in the Pacific. That's crazy. And then of course, there's only one team right now on a 7-game win streak in the NHL, and that's Lindy Ruff's Buffalo Sabres. And I
Oh my
say Lindy
God.
Ruff's Buffalo Sabres to elicit a reaction out of whoever's listening to this, because of course you'll remember he was the most recent coach of the Devils prior to Sheldon Keefe and an interim stint from Travis Green. Um, yeah, doesn't feel great for us in New Jersey. Very happy for the Buffalo Sabres and their fans. They have waited long enough to have a half decent team. They deserve this.
I want to say they are not winning because of Lindy Ruff. If we want to say earlier this season, the Buffalo Sabres were doing Buffalo Sabres things and being one of
Yeah.
the worst teams in the NHL. And then they fired their GM. Of all things, them firing their GM sparked this run from the Buffalo Sabres. They are one of the best teams in the NHL since that point.
Get it. Are you listening, Josh Harris? Are you listening, David Blitzer? Just saying. Just saying.
It's actually like remarkable to see that, you know, the GM getting fired, the players just said, "All right, guys, we really got to start playing." And they look like one of the best teams, right? So, you know, shout out to them. I guess shout out to Lindy Ruff, but shout out to Tage Thompson. I mean, what a player. Like, I don't think many people knew how good he was until this Olympics, but seeing him at Worlds last year, seeing him, you know, the clips that I'm able to see from Buffalo Sabres games, this guy's a stud. I mean, he's just a mammoth on the ice. His shot is he's got one of the best shots in the NHL.
Yeah.
Um, Buffalo's got a good one in him. So, you know, shout out to the Sabres. We want to talk about that Tampa game. What was it? Was it also on
Eight
Sunday?
is it 8-7? Yeah.
8-7. You know, fights galore. I
Over
really hope.
102 penalty minutes, I think it was.
I think that was in one period. Um, I'm really hoping we get that playoff series because that is going to be an excellent watch. So shout out to Buffalo. Hope you guys go on a run because you kind of deserve it. Like 14
Yeah,
years not being in
absolutely.
the 14 years NHL record not being in the playoffs. I mean, that. Whew,
They're
what is
gonna
that?
break that
What is
streak,
that? Is that's 2012? Am I doing math right? Is my math wrong?
I
That's
guess. No,
2012?
that would be if it's 14 years, that would be unless it includes that season, it would be 2012. Let me look
I
that up.
mean, to think about that, right? I was a freshman in high school that year.
Yeah.
So like
Okay, so
shout out to
2010-11 is their last playoff
2010,
appearance.
11. Yeah. And that was the year before the Devils made the cup final.
Hmm.
So just think about that. That's a crazy run to be that bad. And like they've been bad. They've literally
Yeah,
been
they've been bad.
bottom three worst teams in the NHL since. So shout out to them. I know a Buffalo Sabres fan and he's enjoying the ride. So shout out to him.
Good.
And let's go Sabres, man.
Yeah, if there's one team I'd like to see succeed, it would be the Buffalo Sabres. They haven't won a playoff series since 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to
Woof.
see them have some success. Even if it's just a series win in the playoffs, that would be great.
Yeah.
And for Lindy Ruff, I know he's not the most beloved figure in New Jersey now, but he was part of the transition from the Devils becoming a playoff team again. And since he's left, they haven't really looked like much of a playoff team. Not that it's on him that he was the sole reason they made the playoffs, and that his absence is why they're not a playoff team anymore. Um, I just think that there's going to be big change this offseason, whether that's Sheldon Keefe goes or Tom Fitzgerald. One
I
or
think I
both of
think
them
I think I think both of them are staying.
one or both of them should not stick around, in my humble opinion. And it would be harsh, I think, if they made Sheldon Keefe wear a lot of what's going on this year, because I think his profile fits what his as a coach, what the Devil should be trying to do, but things haven't progressed much. Even this 4 game win streak, after all the good stuff they did, they fell back into their same old habits against the Red Wings, and it's starting to feel like, well, I don't know what could help make things any different, because this certainly isn't. So, I mean, that's all. We're all caught up now on uh, what's gone on in the Devils in the last few weeks. Just Dan, give us a look, a glimpse, if you will, into what the future could potentially look like.
Yeah, I think, we haven't mentioned many prospects this year, especially how bad the Devils have been. We probably should have been touching on some of these guys this year, but I just want to clearly shout out NCAA, conference playoffs are underway. Some of this college hockey has been really good this year. I mean, Hockey East, you have Providence. Providence won Hockey East in
Yes,
the regular
sir.
season. Michigan
Go
was one
Friars.
Michigan was 1 point off of the Big Ten title. So back 3 straight years, Michigan State has won Big Ten. That should be a really good championship game if they meet there. And then shout out to our boy. I'll touch on him first. Chase Cheslock with the St. Thomas Tommies. I mean, there's another guy that's kind of made the biggest jump in the prospect rankings for me this year, but Chase Cheslock has turned into an all-around player this year. I mean, not only is he playing, first line minutes, he's playing power play. He's the power play quarterback in St. Thomas. He's on the penalty kill. I mean, he's got 23 assists this year. He finally scored his first goal in the playoffs this year, which was he just threw it towards the net and it went in. Overtime winner. Yeah, guy, he's been on a heater this year, and he's definitely someone that Devils fans should be looking out for signing his ELC because he is a junior. Fifth round pick in 2023. Just think about all the fifth round picks, that have made the Devils in recent years, right? You had Jesper Bratt, I believe was a fifth round pick, and
Sixth round pick.
sixth round pick. My bad, even better right there. Sixth round
All
pick.
right.
Arseny Gritsyuk, fifth round pick in 2015. Like you need some of these late round draft picks to hit, and Chase Cheslock looks like one of them. I mean, he's right-handed defenseman. He looks like in the NHL he's probably going to be a more of a shutdown guy, but him being able to show that he's got that flexibility to, you know, power play a quarterback a power play. I mean that's been very impressive to see this year. He's definitely someone to look out for with Utica to maybe end the year and then next year as well. But the biggest prospect that's taken a jump this year is Daniil Orlov. I think we touched on him early this year out in the
Mhm.
KHL, playing for Spartak Moscow. I mean, last year I think he had 15 points or something like that. He was finally just starting to make his, like fully get ingrained into his KHL team, but he's taken a massive jump this year. He's playing over 21 minutes for Moscow. He's projected to have 30 points this year. He's got 9 goals right now. I mean, he's definitely tapered off a bit offensively, but his defensive game is out there. He's got 44 hits as well with 71 blocks. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on the next 2 years. Like an Arseny Gritsyuk, right? He re-signed or he extended this past offseason for 3 more years. So I believe it's in 2028 that he's going to come over. But when he's 25, he might be the best, Russian defenseman in the KHL. And to be able to bring a guy like that over at that point in time could be massive for the Devils. So, he was a fourth round pick in 2022. So just another guy to keep a lookout on the back end. But I think the biggest surprise this year for the Devils in prospect terms is David Roosevelt. He's playing in the U. He made the jump from the Czech U20 league to the USHL this year. He's playing in Green Bay, sixth round pick of the Devils last year in the draft, and he's had a really good year. He's got 20 goals in 48 games. Um, it's going to be interesting to see if he commits to a college. I know he's got one more year of eligibility for juniors, but if he commits to a college and goes to NCAA next year, that's definitely someone to keep an eye out. But even then, if he's playing another year in the USHL, keep an eye on him. He could be a guy that scores 40 goals next year for Green Bay. Um, interesting player. Um, but definitely the biggest senior to watch out for this these next couple months, who could be um, a guy that potentially signs with the Devils, his ELC is Samu Salminen. We've talked about him a bunch over the years. Kind of having, another good year at Denver. I believe he had 2 goals like 2 weeks ago, and like in the last game, or maybe in the first game of the playoffs for Denver. But he's an assistant captain this year. He's been playing on in the top six. Definitely a really good, solid, bottom six center in the future. So I would definitely give him a ZLC. It's going to be interesting to see if he wants to sign. I know he wasn't there at in prospects camp this year, but I don't know if that was a logistical thing or if he was injured. But definitely someone, he's got the ability. He's 6'3", 205. He wins faceoffs. He plays on the penalty kill. Definitely someone I would keep an eye out for this summer. Because if he doesn't sign before August 15th, he becomes a free agent. So that would suck to see because he was a third round pick back in 21, I think. And then lastly, in the forward and defensive group, got to shout out Matyas Malofsky. Um, if you remember, he was also a sixth round pick in 2024. He had that really good year in the Quebec Major Junior League or Maritime League. I don't know. They renamed the league. Um,
In the
but
queue.
in the queue. But this year he signed an AHL contract to come play with Utica. Um, it's been up and down offensively. Only 13 points in 39 games. I think he was dealing with an injury in the past couple of months. But he signed his ELC with the Devils going forward. So that was good to see out of him. He gets a 2 year deal right there. Definitely someone to keep an eye out for the future if he could be a future 4C. He's got the ability, showed his offensive prowess in the queue last year. So um, it's just about developing his game. And if he can make that jump to fourth line center and next year, maybe even next year or in 2 years, I think that would be a solid pick, especially since he was a sixth round pick. But I think the other biggest surprise this year is in goal, and it's not Mikhail Yegorov. Yegorov has had a down year to his standards that he set last year with BU, but BU's been abysmal this year, to say the least. But the biggest surprise has been, let me say his name right, Vidi Luhivara.
Think you
Finnish,
nailed it.
I hope so. Finnish goalkeeper, goaltender that we drafted in the fifth round in 2024, was playing in the Finnish U20 league. Got 8 starts in the second division as well. But he made a surprising move in the winter, and he moved to the Chicago Steel, coached by former Devil Scott Gomez. Um,
Go.
yeah, go, yeah. Before he
We
moved to, yeah, before he signed with the Rangers,
don't
but
talk about that. We don't talk about that.
I mean, he's been a revelation for that team. I think they said second, but they're the second worst team, I believe, in their division in the USHL, only ahead of the National Team Development Program, who, we need some better players to commit to that team. But in 19 games, he's 11-4-4, has a save percentage of 910 and one shutout. I mean, definitely the biggest surprise in the goaltending ranks for the Devils. And he's kind of turned that into a college commitment as well. He committed to the University of Connecticut, UConn, the Huskies. And he has a realistic chance to start next year as a freshman. So it's going to be interesting. Hockey East is a gauntlet, as we've seen with Mikhail Yegorov. So if he can go in there for one of the top programs and start as a freshman, the Devils might have, two really good goalie prospects in the college ranks next year.
So if you take anything away, folks, a lot to be potentially excited about. If there's one thing that I hope to see from the rest of the season for the Devils, you got two more games against your big rivals. You already
Oh,
smoked them
we
once.
got to.
I mean, it was closer than the scoreline suggested, but if you can get a sweep against the Rangers, I think some fans would leave the season a little bit happier, and even Rangers fans would be happy too because they're in tank mode. They want Gavin McKenna.
I think the
They
biggest.
need Gavin McKenna.
I think the biggest thing we can hope for is the Devils sweep the Rangers, and then the Rangers, end up with the fourth overall pick. Like, don't get any of the top three
Not
picks.
top three, yeah.
Yep. If two teams could jump them in the draft lottery, that would be a perfect scenario for this team. So yeah, get those two win. I believe both those games are in Madison Square Garden as well, right? I think they
Yeah,
only
which
had.
is totally fair. Yeah.
Can we talk? I know we want to end the show, but the
No, it's
schedule
fine.
the schedule making is brutal.
Ridiculous.
Brutal with all the games that they want to play against other conference foes. Playing two games against the Western Conference. I think that's just ridiculous. There's no scenario where the Devils should be playing the Rangers three times. I just remember back in the good old days, the good old 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, the Devils played the Rangers eight times. Like, and I think we can go on a tangent about that for and a half hour, an hour, maybe even more than that. But I think we need to get back to they want to play more games against your division in the playoffs. We have to go back to the 1-8 playoff format, and
Yep.
you should be playing your division, you know 5-6 times a year. I
The
just feel like that would make the regular season worth more, in my opinion.
Well, look, the next year they will add two games to the schedule. So you play each team in your division four times, you play each team in the other division within your conference three times, and then each team in the opposite conference twice. I don't think you need to play the teams in the other conference twice. And
No, it
84
should be one
games feels like
time.
a lot. But, regardless, it's a better system for next year than it is this year. The playoff system, you're absolutely right, is atrocious. And the best example is what we're going to get in the Central and Pacific divisions this year.
I
The
mean,
fact that two of those teams in the Pacific or in the Central are going to have to get eliminated before the second round, and the same for the Central and the Pacific. It's ridiculous considering the points discrepancies between
Dallas,
those two.
one of Dallas and Minnesota are not getting out of the first round, and that's tragic to think about. Like,
Yeah,
like just playing a whole 82 game season, and you're one of the best three teams in the sport this year, let alone in your conference. And basically, the second and third best team in the conference are going to be playing each other in the first round is asinine. It's ridiculous, and we need Gary Bettman to retire already so they could change that because he said they're not going back until with him being in charge. So expedite his retirement, please, because we need to go back to 1 and through 8. Because one of those teams should not be going home after the first round.
And it's not an advantage for either because the team that gets eliminated will feel that they are eliminated too early, and rightfully so. And the team that goes through will have probably accrued several injuries and will be on tired legs because the series is inevitably going to go into seven, and
Oh
they'll be at a
yeah.
disadvantage who they're playing in the next round. It's just not fair to front load the toughest matchups like that. And this has been what it makes for exciting first rounds. Don't get me wrong, but this has been what unfortunately has been going on with the playoff formatting. But that brings us to the end of the latest puck on the Parkway. Maybe not the most upbeat that we've ever done, but we've certainly had worse. Dan, we certainly have. So for Daniel Rebane, I've been James Burley. 18 games left to go. Hopefully they go quicker rather than slower based on how things have gone. But still 1.1% chance the Devils make the playoffs.
Oh yeah. You're
Then
saying there's a chance.
there's a chance. And once we get closer to the end of the season, we'll start to take a look at the draft lottery odds, I guess, because that's back where things are. I know it's sad, but to new beginnings. For Dan Rebane, James Burley, thank you guys so much for listening. Take care. Have a good one.
Peace.